presentation on the delinquency issue, as well as a recommendation of how management thinks we should proceed to address it. And other than that, the minutes look good to me.
I make a motion as amended.
Okay. New business. Let's move on to the financial reports for August. Thank you. Actually, yeah. Okay, where's this up here? So, Jeff?
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Director Garamendi. Before you is the September budget status report, 3 months into the fiscal year where the benchmark is 25%. So we're looking at about 25% for revenues and expenditures, although sometimes the revenues come in later in the year, like property tax revenue. So you'll see a 0 there. Sometimes our expenditures, like some of our insurance and memberships, come in the front end of the year. So getting to understand the different line items gives us a better idea of how to look at the benchmark percentages. Under operating revenues, we're just under 25%. If you look at the bottom of page 1, it shows 24.96. Some are higher, some are lower, but we're pretty much tracking as far as budget is concerned. Water and revenues are just under 28% of budget. And that you can see on the third line down, 41200, we're at 31%, which is actually the second line, 27.84. Those items in green are above the benchmark by about 5% or below by approximately 5%. Like the repair, labor, materials, it's low. That is something that is driven by need. It's not a consistent item that we get billed for. It's somebody who comes in and wants us to do some work for them, and we bill them for time and materials. Some of the things that really stick out is, as we're looking at these numbers, is if you look down to the delinquent account charge, we're at, remember, this is a $10 late fee, which started in July. We're above budget. We're at just under 46%. But as customers become more and more aware of the fees and they're starting to pay on time, which is what we really want, we'll see that percentage drop. It's just high in the beginning because more people it's new to them. But we've already seen the number of people who get the fee. We talk about it, he goes, I'm making sure that I'm going to pay on time now. And that was the whole impetus for reinstating this fee. Reimbursable expenses, that's at 73%.
Okay, sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
So we've you've seen an increase of people paying on time as a result of the $10 fee.
We're seeing fewer $10 fees, which tells me more people are paying on time. But remember, we just have a couple billing cycles. It'd probably take another 2 or 3 more billing cycles to get a better feel.
Determine how effective it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
The reimbursable expense is currently is $86,000, which is above budget, 73% of budget. That is mainly reflective of some reimbursable expenses. The contractor for the Jenny Lynn AB transmission line reimbursed the district for some expenses that we had to incur. So that is kind of an anomaly.
Okay.
Property tax revenues, as I mentioned, is at 0. We won't get the first ones until January. New Hogan Power is about 37% above budget. I mean, it's 37%, where the benchmark is 25. North Fork is just under it at just under 24%. And the one thing about New Hogan, pretty much the Calaveras River is driven by rain, and you're looking at how much water's in the reservoir. to be able to, for power generation, and MID kind of controls that. That will fluctuate during the year. They tend to also close, if they have any maintenance, it's during the early part of winter when things are kind of dry there. Whereas the North Fork project, was originally that set at a certain amount, and then it's increased quarterly based on a Bureau of Reclamation engineering cost indicator. But overall, we're just under 25% combined for the two revenue sources for the hydropower. Interest income is much higher than budget at this particular point in time. Part of that is higher, the rates are still high, but the other part is the fund balances that we have available to earn interest in the operating fund. One of those is when we took out the loan through Capital One, since we we were still working through the parity request through USDA, which we still are. We had to put in an amount of money into an escrow account, and that the funds coming out of that escrow account are earning interest, and that's helping boost our interest income.
So that's other non-operating revenues, correct?
That would be other non-operating revenues. That's a little different. Those are the reimbursement, generally the reimbursements we get from MID and NCPA for the fees and licenses we have to pay.
Okay.
NCPA reimburses us 100%, MID about 90%. And that fluctuates too, because when we pay in the early years and we get reimbursement, there's some that we get reimbursed early in the year, some later in the year. So the percent, I'm more interested in when I track things, I look at what we expect to get during the year for each individual license and permit, and I can track those to see if we're on target. To me, that's a better indicator than percentages. So that is the operating revenues. If we go over to page 3, these are the non-operating revenues. Basically, they are our expansion fees that we collect, and that's the majority of them, and interest income we receive on any of the non-operating funds. Interest income is fairly robust. We don't budget for these because it's not an operating income. These are things like the interest we get in our expansion funds. We have water and sewer expansion funds and copper, Jenny Lynn, elsewhere. They earn interest off of their investments, but we can only use those for projects within those service areas. So we do not include those in any of our operating revenues. They are restricted. We also have our reserve accounts in this area too, which we do not keep as part of our operating funds.
The same thing applies for the reserve account. It's reserved for sewer, it can only be used for sewer, the interest. Okay.
That is correct. Expansion fees are at 133,000. That's exactly what they were last month. So there were no new connections in September. Any questions on either operating or non-operating revenues?
Okay, so on the property tax revenue, what are we collecting that on?
There's two different things. Actually, there's operating and non-operating.
Right.
I'll start with non-operating. In property tax collections, we have the general property tax allocation that the county gives us. It's a percentage.
Got it.
Then there are improvement districts that the district created years ago. And those improvement districts, we collect off of those as well, like Evans Pass Improvement District. Those funds go into the operating fund along with a portion of the general collections. The general collections, 15% of that goes into our reserves in what we call a special project fund for both water and sewer. Those we set aside for projects one-time expenses. We did one of the budget change orders at the last meeting, utilizing those funds for our portion of the share of the emergency generator project. So we try to maintain those so that if we do have one-time expenses that we can't fit into our regular operating revenues, those are available.
Okay, and then when we've had a delinquent account and it's gone to the county on a tax basis, when we get reimbursed for that, which can be years later, correct?
No, it goes to that tax year. Remember, we're on the teeter program.
All right, that's right, the teeter. And where that just shows up just as regular revenue then?
No, when we get our reimbursements from the county, they list out all the different improvement districts, all the general. Then they list all the sewer and water and money they pull in, but when we put it on the tax rolls.
Right.
So everything is split off, so we put it where the dollars should go. So
Yeah, okay.
so those revenues that come in for delinquencies, those go into rate revenues.
rate revenues, all right.
And that'll be split between January and May.
And our fee to the county is just 1%? Is that-
1% on what we submit.
Right,
And we submitted this last go round, a little over 600,000. So it was a $6,000.
I saw the $6,000
Yeah.
there.
But we
And
also,
we pay that up front, or is that taken out when we get reimbursed?
that's taken out when we get reimbursed,
Okay, great.
along with some other fees. LAFCO fees get taken out and some of the other fees come out first.
Incredible deal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No more.
No more on revenues. Okay. Let's move on to page number 4, the district operating expenses. The first 4 pages of this report is a consolidated expense summary, meaning it's not broken out by department. The following, we dive a little bit deeper into each individual department and some of the overages that we see. But I did go through and just highlight some of the key ones that we find that are in red. I tend to focus more on the large dollar gaps. If I'm looking at a $1,000 expense line and we're at $700, unless something really jumps out at me, it doesn't grab my attention. But the first one that, and let me back up a sec. We're at just under 25% of budget. So we're doing pretty darn good. And that includes debt service. Salaries and benefits were just under 22%. The percentage has increased a little bit because we were filling vacant positions. As Michael alluded to in our all hands meeting today, employee meeting, for the first time ever in Michael's history, we're fully staffed in engineering. And that's huge, finding engineers. So we're going to start seeing more trending more towards the budgeted amount for salaries and benefits. Now, if we go over to still staying on that first page, page number 4, materials and supplies is just over 19% of budget, but I wanted to highlight a couple of those that jumped out. And one of those is down on 60350 aerators compressor, the first one in red, the 42.32. There was a need to replacement air compressor and pH probe for the Jenny Lind water treatment plant. So that was the bulk of that. And you'll probably see that percentage go down over the years. It just becomes mainly general maintenance.
A relatively small amount compared to, say, chemicals.
Yeah. So we're looking at only 7,600 out of an $18,000 budget. But if it jumps out in red, I'd like to provide an explanation.
Thank you.
The uniform launder that you see over on the right at 376, I take responsibility for that. I was diving into that a little deeper. It's kind of interesting because if you compare this year's year-to-date actual, which is $4,000, to what we were last year at the time, which is 7,100, we're actually below the year prior. We had changed vendors a couple times, and now we've settled in on one. For some reason, the budget, and this falls into the utilities department. I went back into the budget to take a look at the numbers because the budget to me just didn't look right. There was an equation within the original budget document that reduced that by $2,200, $2,100. I was looking at that today. I can't figure out why at this particular point, but it should not have been budgeted at $1,000. It should have been budgeted at about $23,000. And that can be fixed in next year's budget, but I should have caught that. But when I'm looking at the actuals compared from this year to last year, we're less than we were last year. The item below that, fire hydrant maintenance, we've had fire departments go out and inspect and maintain and test the fire hydrants. They did quite a bit of work in this first quarter, and that's why we're a little bit higher than the 25%. If you go down towards the bottom of that page under office expense, membership and dues, and I think I've mentioned this previously, very often we pay our memberships in the beginning of the year. UMRA and such, those type of fees that we pay, T-Stand, we all pay in the early part of the year. I think Aqua's part of that as well. So they tend to be high percentage relative to budget early on, but it flattens out because these are one-time costs.
Okay, sorry to go back. If I recall, last time we talked about chemicals, because we bought a bunch of chemicals up front.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's right. Never mind. Keep going.
No, actually, that's a good point because I skipped over that. Yeah, in talking to Damon, they tend to buy in bulk.
Yeah.
And so it varies based on how they buy.
Jeff, why is that column red?
The
The 60395 chemicals.
60355.
Yeah, seems like you're ahead.
Because it's over 20, it's 5% over the benchmark of 25%.
Okay, so you use red if it's above or below.
Michael's favorite color.
Gotcha. Good enough.
Red is nobody's favorite color when it comes to the county. All right.
Okay, that goes to the aerator compressor question too, so it's cool.
Yes.
If it's outside that block, it gets a red, good or bad. Looking at chemical.
No, on the expense side, we read on the revenue side, you'll see green or red.
Yeah.
Okay. On towards the top of page 6, under retiree employee costs, as I mentioned the last time, we always pay a month in advance. So that actually is 4 months worth of payments, and which equates to 33%. And it's actually at 31% here. So we're on target. And that number will go up in January, February, March, when we get a new retiree, actually 2 retirees.
I can't recall this. I
Ron Rose is another individual who's retiring.
remember the one.
Yes. Insurance, we've talked about that. That's another one where we front load the payments early in the year. And federal dam and admin fees are similar.
Mhm.
Water conservation, was timing of some scholarships that we provided. The one that I really want to focus on right now is the third-party payment processing. That's the one highlighted in red at 40.75%.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I started diving into this a little bit recently, and we utilize Tyler and then Global Payments is the interchange agency. And Global Payments prices, monthly statements increased dramatically over the last year. So I was pulling up the older statements and did a comparison. It's not so much their credit card fees that changed. They have two fees that they charge us separately. One of them is a settlement funding fee. That's basically their charge to us so they can get us our money day one instead of 2 days because they are slow in collecting their money from the bank. So when there's a credit card payment, they give us the money right up front, but it takes them a couple of days to get it. So that's they're charging us for that float. In April of 2024, it was 60 cents per transaction. Now it's $1.10 per transaction. It went up 83%. So it went up from 2,000 a month to 5,000 a month. We have about 1,700 transactions a month.
Is that an optional charge? Can we carry the float and pick up $3,000 a month?
That's a good question. So I got on the phone and spent 45 minutes on a call center outside the country trying to work through this process. And he said, this is what we do. But I said, I want better. So my request, and he said, somebody should get back to me in a week or two, is I want a more detailed explanation as to what these fees are, why they were increased, and what can we do about them. And he said he'd also have a rep call me. I have not heard back, so I'm getting ready to call them. Yes.
These guys, I mean, we're paying them $500,000 a year. They don't have a sales guy who should be in your office tomorrow morning.
I would think so, yes.
I mean, does our contract say they've got to provide services to us?
We have to use them if we use Tyler. We have no other choice.
But I mean,
Yeah.
they have to hold up their side of the road,
Yeah,
right?
they do. Because the next one is even more costly. There's
Okay.
another fee too. And that's called a risk assessment fee that went up from 66 cents per transaction to $1.77.
Wow.
This is a risk team that they have created and enhanced their security over the last year. And I want to know why it's that much. I mean, that's 168% increase.
When we sign a contract with them, don't we have a fixed rate?
No,
So it's whatever the market.
and it changes each year.
And how long is our contract?
That contract's coming up here soon.
With Tyler, yes,
Later this year, I believe.
This fiscal year or calendar year?
the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it's,
we'll have to double check on that.
Seemed like something.
I think
I'd
it's
say,
spring.
yeah, I'd want to be
Yeah.
chatting with y'all.
yeah, I think it's spring of next year. I don't know if it goes through the whole year.
We'll take a look at that.
Yeah, so it went up from 2,000 a month to $11,000 a month.
When we renegotiate it, let's make sure as best we can.
Yes. So I wanted to share that with you, that it's not necessarily the fees on the credit cards themselves. It's Global Payment, which is the provider that's bumping up their costs.
We're going to talk more about payment processing in the agenda down the road. So
Yes, sir.
I can hold my questions.
With this fee increase, we used to collect maybe 83% of the revenues and fees from, because we do charge a fee on these transactions. Now we're down to about 58% based on these increases. But this is something we have to look at, not only the providers, how to reduce costs, because I'd rather find a way to reduce costs than increase costs to the customers.
And have you heard from other water districts who are using other credit card processors that, is anyone offering a better deal? I mean, when we go for competition next year, should that be something we decide?
Yeah, we should do a thorough investigation. Unfortunately, at this point, being shorthanded,
Yeah,
I haven't been able to reach out, but we're focusing on other things. But as we look at providers, whether we stick with Tyler, because Tyler, there may be other ways we can do some using, maybe Paymentus or some of these others, but they do have their drawbacks, because one of the advantages of using Global Pay and with Tyler, we get real-time information. We wouldn't if we go to another provider. So it would be delayed. So there's trade-offs.
Trade-offs, gotcha.
We can go into detail on the individual departments, but I basically covered everything when we talked about all those in red.
I think we do that at 6 months to spend one, but no need for now, but at some point during the year, maybe mid-year.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the individual departments, it goes into a little, you know, let's look at the non-departmental on page 8. We talked about retired employee costs. We talked about that. That's where we pay a month in advance. The same way with the insurance. So I probably covered 90% of these items as we went through the consolidated statement.
But if on page 8, if we looked at our grand total and we're at 21.21%, and we should be closer to 25, you're not concerned about that number
For
the operating account expense summary?
if
Or is
we're
that-
under budget, I'm
So
not
we're
too,
under budget.
Yeah.
Sorry, never mind.
Yeah.
Got it backwards there in my mind for a moment.
okay. And the other thing is sometimes when we look at debt service, we track debt service on budget to actuals, percentages based on that, because sometimes you make one principal and 2 interest payments a year. So it's easier to look at the debt schedule and know where you stand versus the debt schedule versus percentages. And in my mind, debt gets paid before anything else.
Okay.
We cannot afford to be delinquent late in our debt service payments.
Is there anything of real concern for you in any of this? I mean, I
Third-party fees, which we just
Yeah.
went over, that is a concern. I'm not concerned about uniform launder. It's minor when you compare it.
Mhm.
Insurance costs, we need to keep track of that because we don't always get a good heads up on what our costs are going to be for the following year. But I think we need to poll Scott a little bit more and get some more information on where he thinks the rates are going to be. They all tend to go up. But other than that, chemicals obviously are an issue,
Mhm.
and some of our repair costs. So I tend to keep an eye on those.
I think Scott can be helpful with JPIA, but let's reach out to them directly.
Mhm.
Make sure we're getting as much information as we can directly.
Yes,
I see in the paper, everybody's getting their insurance premiums are rising. Do we have any unexpected rise that's happening? Or is it pretty much we accounted for some?
it's pretty much
increase?
accounted for. One of the concerns I do have, and maybe I can bring this back at the next meeting, is claims that we have to pay out for damage. And now that Kelly is
Same in
gone,
terms of lawsuit claims?
not necessarily, if it's a lawsuit, it goes through JPIA.
Right.
They handle us. But if it's a smaller dollar claim for some damage that either our crews did or due to a leak pipe, and that's what if a pipe bursts and water goes down onto the property, those are depending on dollar amount, those generally are handled by us. And with Kelly gone, I'm not overseeing that. So I guess it's more being aware of each and every claim coming across my desk. So those are kind of things I'd like to be able to start tracking and report back to your committee on.
I'd be curious what those are, and if it's a big number or a little number, and
Yeah,
I
it
don't
can
know.
fluctuate. It can be hard to predict because sometimes we have full years where they're really small, and minimal. Sometimes we, have a main break and we blow out somebody's driveway. It could be, could be some significant ones too.
And that tends to be the ones that we pay higher claims on, because if water goes into the house,
no, absolutely. I mean, we gotta cover, we gotta do the right thing. I'm just curious how expensive it is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Bring a report back on
okay,
And we had that potholes in the county and yeah, it happens.
Are there any more questions on expenditures, revenues or expenditures on the operating budget?
I mean, overall, it looks like I know you don't like using the percentage, but we're under on expenses, just barely, when 24.8, whatever it was, and we're over on revenues for the year.
Do you know what
So,
that means?
Means
That
we're
means your
in the-
general manager and your director of admin services
Are
put
doing
together an
great.
awesome budget.
That's what it means to me.
I have no more questions on that.
Okay,
I have no more. Except why did my thing suddenly go horizontal?
pardon me?
No, I must have clicked something. My paper, which I was able to read like this, is now all like this. It's
Okay.
let me, here, got something here. I'm good.
Okay. The next report that's here is the fund balance report. This lists all the different funds and where we stand. The ones that I really tend to look at are the operating budgets. The fund 300, 400, and 500. 300's water, 400's hydropower, 500's sewer. Now, remember, traditionally sewer has been negative. And if you look at this, it's not that encouraging, because if you go down to Fund 500, as of June 30th, we're about 760,000 in the hole. Now we're a little over 1 million in the hole. We're down about 266,000. Now, remember, part of our revenues coming in, a big part is property taxes. But we also have debt service and some other payments early on. And I'd like you to go to the next page for a little bit more encouraging news. This is the fund activity report. If you look at these, this is for September. If you look at the revenue in September, for water is 2.5 million, 1.6 in expenses. So we're actually in the plus by 978,000. Sewer, 1 million in revenue, 571 in expenses. We're 493,000 on the plus. So we're trending back upwards. And that's what I like to see, look at is a monthly activity. Because we built, yes, you're in a little hole early in the year, but then it builds back up. And this is something that we want to keep an eye on. And if the budget projections come true and there's not any major issues, the sewer fund should be positive by the end of the fiscal year, which in itself has never been positive since I've been here. And that started in 2008. So it's been a challenge.
And
we-
that's, in your opinion, due to the great work of the administrative section, or the rate study and increases?
Rate study and increases
Yeah.
were it, and trying to hold the line.
Yeah.
The other part of that too is for many years, because at the end of the fiscal year, when you do your audit, you have to show that the water fund had to make up the deficit in the sewer fund. So each year, the water fund kept pouring money into the sewer fund and we had to repay that. We're on the, I think, was it last year or this year, we repaid that loan, the sewer loan.
Yeah.
We're very small, so we're doing a great job of repaying a $1.1 million plus loan. And we did that over the last several years to get us on track, because that was a debt that was on the books noted by the auditors. We needed to get that off the books before we can build up our fund balance in the sewer fund.
Got it.
But that's a huge accomplishment. And really, the bottom line of all this is we only have a little over 5,000 sewer customers. And sewer is very expensive to operate and maintain. So when you have that few customers and you tend to not collect enough revenues, you get yourself into a hole. And it's been very difficult to manage this sewer system just because you don't have a whole lot of customers and they're spread out over the county. With water, we have over 13,000 customers. It's a little bit easier to spread the costs over that larger number of customers. Any questions on funds and fund balances? The next one is a CIP status report. I wish you were here at the all hands employee meeting, because Kevin Williams, our district engineer, went through and identified all the projects they're working on and wrapping up. The projects are numerous, even beyond just what you see on this paper, because some of them are studies. And it's real exciting to see that we're getting close to the end of some of these projects. Underwater, the Copper Cove Tank B Clearwell project is wrapping up. So that one's going to be completed soon. The Jenny Lind AB transmission line, that's a huge project we're working on. They've been running into some rock issues, but they still hope to have that done by the end of this fiscal year. So that's a big accomplishment to get those done. There is let me see here. The Copper Cove C transmission pipeline, that's going to be started soon. There is the West Copper Cove Water Treatment Plant Filter Rehab Project. That's going to be going out to bid and starting here soon, probably in the beginning of next year. The Hunter's Raw Water Mitigation Program, that's pretty much grant funded, so we're waiting to move ahead with that and get authorization. So we have a number of projects that are in process. And another one he talked about was the West Point drought water supply. And that, if I'm not mistaken, is raising the Bummerville Dam up to be able to hold more water. And Kevin was saying they probably performed the fastest design and environmental on any dam enlargement project that the state has ever seen. And so we've gotten to the point where all the environmentals and design are done. Now it's submitted to the state to move on to the next phase.
It was impressive. It was a tight budget too. The funding available for design and environmental review was not a lot. And so Kevin and his team and the consultants had to work really quickly with a tight budget, and they got it, because it's very time, it's hard to go back to FEMA and get more money or an extension of time. Just that process alone takes a lot of time. And so we really didn't want to have to do that, and FEMA's the funds are drying up anyway, so we were sure we would get it. And Kevin and his team got it done on time and did just under budget.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind going to, I probably will show up for one of the next engineering committee meetings and just sit in the back or
Yeah,
sit,
we can log in.
or sit in or whatever. If there's
He does give an even more detailed version of this project run through at those engineering committee meetings. So
I guess with all of these going on, there's also those that are also needed. I'm curious what that would be. But you know, in my grace, I was thinking about this the other day, to help Kelly be able to hit some of these hard questions, and I'm sure he gets, and you too. I mean, I saw your letter that you sent us out from someone who was complaining about, the grass isn't getting watered because it's too expensive to use. What percentage of all our CIP projects is funded with grant funding? In other words, CCWD has put in place $40 million worth of capital improvement projects, and the ratepayers have only had to pay 30% of that because your team has been so active about seeking outside funding assistance, grant funding for it. We have a good story to tell there, because every time you come up here, there's you're either asking permissions I'm thinking more to the whole board to go forward and apply for a grant or talking about a grant that you have.
It is a good story, and we did do an update along those lines where we shared how much grant revenue the district has brought in. I think we went back 10 years. But it's probably time to update that, or at least kind of maybe keep a running, of the projects that are in place right now. What are the different funding sources that are, we're drawing from? Because each CIP project is different, and sometimes it's multiple sources of funding for each project. And so it is definitely a good story to tell. And it really is, made the point to staff earlier today that, when we, all of us as CCWD employees, are part of the outreach effort, and they can really help, people I'm sure come to our field staff or anybody that is associated with the district with some of those tough questions. So we want to make sure they have accurate information that they can share with people. And I shared with them today, one of the most frequent questions I get is what's driving these rate increases. And we can point to a list of things, but if you are going to pin me down on what the number one driver is, it's the cost of replacing aging infrastructure. And we have to do it, and we're doing it, but that really is the number one driver. And we do everything we can to bring in outside sources of funds, but we have to pay for a lot of it ourselves.
Well, I've been hit, I don't know about you, Jack, but I get hit with a lot of questions. So it's a lot of money for our clients that, it's expensive.
Yep.
But I am able to say, look, it would be 2 or 3 times as much if we really had to pay for all the stuff that and we're faced with choices. What do? If we don't do the maintenance that needs to be done, then later it costs even more to fix. But anyway, I'd be grateful if you could give just us board members a few more tidbits on things like the amount of grant fundings that go into the CIP projects. And the story that, hey, we're a huge county. We have 5,000 customers for sewer and 13,000 for water. And we have this huge infrastructure that comes from, up by Bear Valley all the way down here. And,
one thing we could share, we do have an expanded version of the CIP spreadsheet that identifies the source of funds for each of the projects.
Mm-hmm.
We can think about either whether it's that spreadsheet or not, we can think about how to best share that with the committee or make it a part of the report.
Mm-hmm. We can actually do 2 pages for each, because one is the original budget page, which shows the funding sources, and then this one, which is expenses to date.
Yeah.
Because if you try to get too much, it gets really small.
I agree. We probably don't want to pack any more into this one page here, but maybe a second page that just shows the project and the sources of the funding for each one.
Because that's a real win.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Michael.
Yes.
And Michael just pointed it out. If you look to the left, next to the project number, the fund column, it puts in what funds the sources are coming from, but it doesn't show the dollar amounts. So if you're looking at 527, that's a USDA loan component. 523, that's the sewer. Oh, I'm sorry, you're still in the water side.
Well, but I think
But
what we should do there, I think, is, and I appreciate that, Michael, we do have a more expanded version of that though. And so if we pull that column out and we put it on the second page, that actually identifies in easier to understand in terms of not codes, what the source of the funding.
Exactly. And then what that does too is the budget will show if it's multiple funding sources, the dollar amount for each funding source. Because sometimes we use, especially if it's a grant funded project, the most we generally get is 75% grant. So we have to have a local match and show where that match comes from. So we can add that in. And there's one more thing, and I know we're months in advance, but we're already thinking about next year's budget. And when they do the CIP budget, engineering usually starts in February and March, coming up with their 5-year CIP projection, where they are. And that's a long process, and it goes to the engineering committee, maybe at least once, maybe twice, and then it'll go to the full board for your review and adoption, and that lays the basis for the next year's CIP. Within that presentation, they go through all the funding sources, all the projects, how it's spread out over 5 years. Not only do you see what's going to happen next year, you see what's out 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance, but they also tell you which projects they don't have any money for.
When those come up, to Jeff's earlier point, let us know when that's coming for the engineer, because Jeff and I probably like to sit.
That'll come to both finance and engineering.
I'd like to hear the
Yeah.
engineering. We could sit in the room and listen to it, because I'd like to see how
I've done it once and it was really interesting.
Does it say, so that is primarily engineering committee.
Engineering
I think
committee,
we
yeah.
can bring it to the finance committee as well as a part of the budget.
right.
But yes, we'll make sure you guys are.
It'll inform us.
Yep. My goal is, and I know sometimes it's hard on engineering, is to have that budget, the 5-year CIP approved in April, so that when it's already in place before, as we develop the operating budget, because we need to know what kind of support we have to provide staff-wise for each budget or each project. And it makes it a lot easier to do the operating budget once you know what the CIP is going to look like. So it's usually approved in April. But that's something that because for the other operating budget, it comes before your committee several times before it even goes to the board.
And what Jeff doesn't know is right before this meeting, I sent an email saying, let's get that done before the end of this calendar year, since we don't want to wait. Maybe not done, but we're gonna start working on the budget earlier than this time around, since we're gonna have some more turnover, and I don't want to.
Crack that whip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get everything we can out of this guy before he heads off to retirement. Being a good soldier.
Right.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind turning the page to the wastewater, the sewer CIP page. And what I'm going to look at is, you can see where the kind of the pinkish column is under fiscal year 25, 26. That's a cash flow for this year. So if we look at the first project, the Arnold Secondary Clarifier, that's the one where we received a 40-year loan from USDA. We just got authorization before they all got furloughed, and now that's gone out to bid. So the goal is to have the bid done and awarded, and then go start construction next spring once the snow melts. Going under Copper Cove, the Copper Cove SAF tertiary project, that SAF equipment's on order. And I believe it's coming in before the end of this fiscal year. Underneath that is, pardon me?
No, the SAP will probably be here it's being fabricated right now.
Right.
Here in spring.
Yeah.
And then our construction crew, in the fiscal year. Yeah.
What is staff?
Suspended air flotation is a pre-treatment process for the wastewater tertiary filter and copper. Director Robertson saw a DAF, diffused air flotation, similar but different treatment technology for wastewater.
Okay.
If you go down under Copper Cove, again, under Copper Cove, the Copper Cove Pond 6 enlargement, that's with the Corps of Engineers. That's an ongoing project. Down under West Point Wilseyville, the West Point Wilseyville Consolidation Project, that's coming to a close. It should be done fairly soon. They did a phenomenal job of getting that through, and that's grant funded, or I think it was 75-25, if I'm not mistaken.
So that's about wrapped and we're on budget.
Yes.
Nice.
And then the collection rehab, engineering and ops work together on this to go out, and similar to that CCTV truck that you had looked at in the previous board meeting that's going to be coming back, that is a huge part of that. So we understand where we need to have some work done, and then the collection crew can go in and take care of that. That's the I&I, inflow and infiltration. Any more questions on the budget status report?
Not on the budget. Did write some down on this, 4B, 3B, sorry.
So the next item is a discussion of utility billing collections and bad debt write-offs. Your committee requested a reporting back from us to give you an idea of where we stand and the different processes. I don't know if you've had a chance to read the staff report. Please say yes, Jeff, because I've put a lot of effort into that. I made it to the level. Are you reading it or did you?
No, you mean this page here?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I read every word of it. In fact, I have some questions on it.
Okay. Thank you. Basically, we use two methods to collect delinquent accounts. The tax rolls, which you're familiar with, and then also, but those are limited to owner occupied homes or properties that are still are owned. If a house is sold or foreclosed upon, then we have no recourse to go through the teeter play or through tax rolls. And more often than not, we do not hear of a house sale until it's recorded. So if somebody owes, say, $500, they sold the house, we have to go through collections to get it back because you cannot place that on that burden on the new property owner.
Understood. Here was my question, reading it. You to say that we don't generally file liens, but we can file liens at any point. And does it make sense to, okay, I don't know, when we go to the teeter program, is that after 1 year of delinquency or
No, that's generally once a year.
once a year?
Yeah. So what they do is they'll look at things that are 6 months old.
Yeah.
And then in the spring, they work through, our staff works through it, reaches out to the customers, encourage them ways to pay it, to get it down. And then if they don't pay, then only that amount goes on to the teeter claim. So if they continue after that to build up debt, make payments, it would go on to the next year.
Understood. But I guess what you're saying and here is that if it doesn't make the teeter plan, there's a number of projects where something gets sold and we're unable to collect.
Right.
It doesn't sound like it's a huge amount of money, but if once a year doesn't, filing the lien is very easy, right? As a contractor, it used to get filed against us all the time, just as a precaution.
Right.
So I guess the question is, does it make sense to add that, to let people know that, after 4 months of not paying, we will put a lien on your property. And to get the lien off, there'll be a charge to get it off because it's an administrative expense to file a lien.
That I'd have to take a look into and see. One, obviously, does our policy allow it? If not, we can always amend policy, but what are the laws regarding that?
Yeah, okay. It may, look, if we're talking, our loss is $20,000 a year because it didn't make it to teeter. It just may not be worth the headache of filing liens, but it strikes me as it might be a worthwhile endeavor.
Now, when you have a bank foreclosure, banks basically thumb their nose at us. They don't care. They take over the house at the last possible moment.
Yeah.
And even if they own it, they will not pay their bills. And they say, come after us. And it's a challenge. We ran into that during the recession. That was huge for us. But there is, I think what I'd like to be able to see more is the results of the late fees and see if they're successful in getting people to be more current in their bills, which would mean less money that is outstanding if a house is sold.
Understand.
Yeah.
If I could,
Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions, Jeff, and I don't think you need to read the memo to us. We've read it, so we can just get into
Sure.
questions. Why is it, I am a customer of Mokel Sewer, or sanitary. And my sewer bill is on my tax bill. And you outline here how the property owner has the ultimate responsibility
Right.
for that. Why is that something, and granted, it has the same outcomes
Mhm.
as what we're doing with a few less steps. Why is that something that we don't do here?
Actually, that's a very good question. And it was part of my director comments
Okay,
and a future agenda item. It was asked by a director who said, can we look into placing our sewer bills on tax rolls? We looked into that. Again, there's the one,
yeah, and I'm
First
new, I missed all this, so,
no, it was before your time.
yeah,
Uh,
most things are.
Yes. And it was, well, Russ and Bertha were on the I believe on the finance committee. Or was it Bertha and Cindy? Anyway, for that particular meeting. One of our biggest challenges right now is cash.
Mhm.
If you put your $8 million of sewer revenue on the tax rolls, you get it in two increments. January and May.
Mhm.
You get no other rate, very little rate revenue the rest of the year. One of the things I mentioned previously in the fund balance is our sewer operating fund is already in the hole $1 million. We cannot financially sustain that process until we get our fund balance up and positive. And in talking to our rate consultant, we would need to extend our 90-day operating reserve to 180-day operating reserve, because again, you're only getting the majority of your revenues twice a year.
Yeah, I
So
know. I understand
that,
cash.
and I talked to Mokel. And the biggest thing for them is it was kind of a savings for them because they use CPUD to issue their bills.
Right,
And they got charged that. So the 1% to them, to the county, it was a wash. And so they were able to maintain it because they have a lot fewer customers too.
right. I guess I'm just looking at this, I'm thinking, we put $660,000 into theater this year and on an $8 million revenue.
No, this is, now that 660 is both water and sewer.
Okay.
And I
So-
don't know how much in each.
I guess I understand the cash flow, but that's a mechanical piece. Takes some creativity, but we could get, but is there, other than the cash flow issue, I guess I'm just, these are this might reduce delinquencies. We talked about the fees that are charged and those are going up.
Yeah.
The county, we wouldn't be carrying those fees, at least for the sewer piece. So I guess I just curious, other than the cash flow issue,
Okay.
why we don't do that.
Right. But cash flow to me is huge. We can't afford it. Because we'd have to borrow from other funds, which we need money for. We used to be able to have excess funds in our expansion funds to be able to borrow from. We're using that for CIP projects, so we're drawing those down.
Right.
So there's more.
Okay, go ahead.
One of the components is you're not really going to save a whole, and I have to dig up my old staff report, but I'll bring it. You're not really saving that much money when it comes to issuing bills through it used to be Data Pros, it's Matrix now, because the majority of our sewer customers are also water customers. So we're still having to issue them bills on their water side. So it's only about 500 sewer only customers, which we would save revenue or save costs associated with that. But every time a property sold, we would have to balance out that cost on that, make adjustments on that Plus, they would then become a customer on a regular billing until we go back into in August to give the county the tax roll for the next year. So we will never, ever get completely 100% away from not having to bill sewer accounts, because every time there's a sale of a home, it has to be done manually and put back on the regular billing system.
Okay, so we're not talking thousands here, we're talking maybe 100, right?
Yeah,
And we'd have to do that for a year. I guess I'm looking at $1 million aggregate, obviously, between fees and sewer costs that are going to the county. And I'm just thinking, there's $1 million of pieces here. And I know you said earlier that we're rebuilding those fund balances, and we were bragging about that a minute ago.
yeah,
Won't that solve this cash flow problem?
it will, but it's
So
a timing issue.
Right, so we're
And so
looking at,
when those funds become solvent, when they're solid, that's when we can go ahead and do that. We can prep for it. But I strongly encourage not going there because we're already having cash flow issues.
okay, I got that today.
Yeah.
I'm
But not
looking at,
when
you're looking
things get
by
better.
your numbers here, we're gonna have these funds figured out here in the next 6 to 18 months. Okay?
And yeah,
Give and take
for the operating fund.
for the operating fund and for these fund balances. So
Right.
just seems like an opportune time to think about this, or at least, I mean, look, I don't know how we got here. I just get to ask the questions. There's
Understood.
usually a good reason why we got here.
I'd like to add to that. I think it's a really great question. I mean, if we're at a 10% delinquency, then you kind of got this, well, if by going on the tax rolls, that gets down to a 1 or 2% or 3%, you're saving 7%. Even though you got to wait for that money, it almost makes sense to borrow money for the immediate cash needs that you have. If you've got a 5 or 10%, 5 or 7% savings there of bad debt.
Yeah, borrowing money is kind of tough.
But you got to be secured by a tax roll. So it's gonna be,
We'd have to go to a bank and pay rates.
Yeah.
Which is about 5% now.
Right.
But
Okay, so that-
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves because the other component of all this, and this is what, in talking to Moke Hill, they got pushback from some of their customers,
sure,
especially those that are paying their property taxes outside their mortgage.
yes,
Because now they're paying twice a year instead of 6 times a year.
yes,
And what we're looking for is trying to make things more affordable for our customers as well. And if you put the burden on them that they have to pay all their sewer bills on 2 payments, that's significant. There's been talk about trying to make it easier for them to break it out maybe into monthly payments or figure out the bill to show it, because we have a lot of people on fixed income. And when we did this, we had some people, when we talked about this, we did have some customers in the audience, and I think it was at a board meeting, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it's finance, but they were concerned that if it went on the tax rolls and they became delinquent, at what point would the county foreclose upon them for not paying their utility bills? So there's a lot of things, moving parts that need to be answered. I'm not saying
Yeah,
it's,
but that's a moot point because it's still on the tax. If they don't pay, it's still going to the county, to the teeter funds.
yeah,
And so it's the same outcome.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, psychologically, getting a $80 water bill is a lot better than a $300 water and sewer bill. Even, I understand it's the same
Yeah.
amount. This is
Right.
just a psychological thing. Because as you point out clearly in your memo, ultimately it's the property owner that's responsible.
right. Oh, I get it. I come back to making sure that as we look at all the moving parts, we discuss them completely, thoroughly, and out in the open and know what the impact is, because there are additional time constraints and workloads issues when it goes on the tax rolls, because there's more work for us to do in customer service to get that done. Granted, it's only once a year, but there are components to that. But on the other hand, it's all a timing issue. And we need to make sure we have adequate money in the bank, because I do not want to borrow money secured by tax rolls. Because that to me, from the bank, shows you don't have adequate funds in the bank. And I don't want to,
I disagree. I disagree with that statement.
well, the other
Because you
thing
have,
is.
you have a secure tax roll. The bank's not taking a risk.
Okay, however, when you look at I'd have to run by bond counsel and see what our existing loan documents allow us to do or not allow us to do. To see if, because they have a number one primary right to all our debt, all our revenues, net revenues. Would this be subordinate to the claim on these, from the bank on our tax rolls or not? That's a bond counsel request, because if it is at the same level, all those banks have to sign off on us getting this type of loan.
So can I make a suggestion here? Because our plan was to bring this item as a separate agenda item back to the next finance committee meeting. And I was going to go back and find some of because we have had this discussion at times in the past.
Sure.
And so we were going to go back and pull some of those material, the kind of the historical discussions that we've had, and share those with you well in advance of the next finance committee meeting, and then agendize this item separately.
Okay, I mean,
That makes sense.
I just bring it up because it is an agenda item here.
So this, I think, is a separate, related but separate
Yeah,
topic.
I mean, I don't think we're breaking the Brown Act by.
No,
Not necessarily breaking the Brown Act, but I think we had a plan to bring this item specifically back separately to provide more information in advance.
and it was going to be my recommendation on future agenda items to put that on for the next meeting.
Yeah, and I'd like to see, all these aggregate costs that we pay. Processing to the late penalties to sending it off to tier and the work that takes that. Are there efficiencies that could help us do that? And the cash flow thing, I understand, but I just don't think it's as big an obstacle as you do. You're the finance director.
Yes, and I sweat bullets at night.
Okay.
Even where we stand now, I sweat bullets at night because we're under stress.
Understood. I think your points are well spoken, but yeah, it's kind of a cost calculation. Where does it end up? But when we were talking about bad debts, which also included water rates that people were not paying, we were hoping to get some kind of recommendation from management on ways to approach it. It's been mentioned that the other water districts shut off water after a certain point. That's pretty drastic, but
Yeah, but we used to do it and it's a significant effort. It was, multiple days of work every month between customer service and field staff to go out and lock people off and then unlock. That was prohibited during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we never went back to lock-offs. And what we've just recently reinstituted was those late penalties. So I think we're kind of at a wait and see moment to see how this plays out. And if that hopefully will decrease delinquencies, because there was a steep rise, especially last year. And if we can bring that back down so that it doesn't become a cash flow issue, then maybe we don't need to resume lock-offs. But we can bring that back to this committee, absolutely. And there's a possibility the state has, the last couple of years, there's been debate about prohibiting lock-offs altogether. So we're kind of cautious about going back to that when we may not be able to use it as a tool in the future.
it's a horrible thing to do. But also 10% delinquency is kind of unsustainable.
Yeah, so we want to see if we can ratchet that back down to a more reasonable.
My guess would be a 10% late fee could make a difference, but I can't imagine it's going to be more than 1% or 2%. Maybe I hope I'm wrong about that. But
Based on the phone calls we get because we messaged this out to customers for quite some time before they actually went into it. They now want to pay on time because they don't want to incur any late fees.
okay, so what's your guess? It'll get down to maybe 5%. I mean, if I recall, it's like 3% allowance for bad debt is kind of a norm for some businesses. We're a little bit of a different kind of business, so it might be higher because of the nature of our business. But
We're lower than that because if you go to the bottom of my staff report on the chart for fiscal year 24-25, we had 69,000 in bad debt, 516,000 in county tax rolls.
right.
So that is a combined, let's round it up to 600,000. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We had probably 22, 20 to 22 million dollars in billings. So you're only talking 600,000 on 2,200 billings for water sewer combined.
Okay. Well, I just seem to recall that we had about a 10%. So I think that was stated at some point. I didn't.
I'd have to, I can come back when we talk about the next meeting.
Okay.
I can give you more of a
Okay.
detail of
All right.
percentages by year. Because I already show you the amount that go on each year there for bad debt and going to the tax rolls. But in reality, we get the tax, when it comes to tax rolls, we get that back. So you're only talking about the bad debt expense.
So the bad debt expense is a write-off?
It's a write-off. We have
Got
to,
it.
when we send it to collections, we have to write it off.
Well, okay.
Question on billing. Why do we bill every other month instead of every month?
Because
Assume there's a good reason.
first off, we've never had the infrastructure in there to be able to bill every month. Because it used to be before AMI, the meter readers had to touch every meter.
Mhm.
And that took weeks to do. Now we're getting a little closer, but we still are short on some of our components that we have to get our system up and running. We've had some damaged, stolen repeaters. We've had some broken ones. And once we get that up and running, if we can get and the best they offer is maybe, I think is 95 or 97% reliability. We'd have to be able to make sure that we can get all the reads done in a certain time frame and get the bills out. One of the things is it's going to double our cost for billing because now we bill everybody 12 times instead of 6 times. So it's going to add $70,000 and that's not put into our budget. Because we use a third party to mail our bills,
So is that postage you're talking about?
postage and billing and printing.
There's not a full twice as much, but there are.
No, it is twice as much. Because everybody would have to get billed 12 times a year
Yeah.
instead of 6 times a year. The other component right now is the ability, it's the mechanism that we're looking at to be able to do it, the costs that are built into it, but the ability to really get people the money or the time frame they bill and set up so that they owe their money before the next bill goes out. You know, it's timing to be able to show if there's any past due. We generally give them 20 days to pay once the bill goes out. And then there's a timing issue and I think part of the other reason is when we used to do lockoffs, there's no way you could do all that work with a monthly billing process.
So you were
It's
going,
not impossible, but the system cannot handle it right now until we get all our AMI equipment up and running and to be able to have accurate reads. So we don't have to do 300-400 paper reads a cycle.
so is this in the plan? Are we finishing up these pieces and it's our intention to go to monthly or not?
No, so the board has discussed this at times in the past and you know, I think for the most part up until now, it just wasn't possible. We might get to a point in the near future where it could be possible, but the board has never set that as an intention or an objective. And so we could you know, if we want to make that, you know, an objective, we can do that and then work with staff to set a realistic timetable for what it would take to work.
I think I'd like to learn more. I mean, it sounds like a lot of our issues are coming back to our billing system. And that billing system is up in
Tyler.
in June, right? And we're going to start this process of bidding. We are not unique. There are a lot of companies and water companies out there that do monthly and have automatic reading. These things work
Mhm.
and they shouldn't take twice the cost. I mean, I understand printing and postage, you can't change that, but it shouldn't be that much of a burden. So we really seems like this committee ought to really take a hard look at that database system. I mean, not that I have any expertise in it, but we pay top dollar. We should get top product.
One of the things we were doing is before Kelly left, She worked with Tyler, came up with a business process review that identified key deficiencies in the utility billing system. We're working with them to get them to fix them. And once that's fixed, we can see if Tyler can continue to be the preferred solution. And at that point, if it is the preferred solution, we'd have to figure out how we can make it work within Tyler. If it isn't, we'd have to then go out and do an RFP and go through a selection process and a conversion process. My feeling on having gone through these is if we decide that Tyler isn't what we want, then we'll probably have to keep Tyler for one more year while we get ready to convert to a new system. Because conversions are a pain in the tush.
I've done 4 conversions on large databases. I understand. Well, but
I think
what
your
I
point
want
is
to,
well taken. I think we absolutely can bring this back and take a.
and if Tyler is not willing to do the work, and it really bothers me when a vendor is not jumping when you have a question, that's bad customer service. And Tyler, if you're listening, get on this.
One of the things that we have found, and this is not just with Tyler, a lot of the softwares we used to have with Springbrook and others, even Tyler before, the system was on premise. So if we wanted to make some adjustments to meet our own particular needs, we could do that. They no longer do that. Everything is in the cloud. And they basically, this is the product you get and you work within it. They may make some improvements upon it, but you no longer have the ability to customize it to your needs, which is unfortunate. So we'd have to find, you never get exactly what you want. We want to make sure we get the most of what we want out of any product. And as I mentioned, as we're going through this process and then to reevaluate it, because it's not just the UB side we're interested in, there's also the finance side, because we use them and the HR side. All that is mixed in. It's a total ERP. The next go round is to look at if it isn't what we want, we'd have to go through that process to go out for an RFP, look at everything, figure out what we want and move forward. But my gut feeling is to be able to get to a new system, we would still have to have Tyler, like we did with Springbrook. Springbrook ran parallel with Tyler for a while until we were able to transition into Tyler. We'll probably have to do, if we move away, we probably have to do something similar to that, but that's off in the distance. The key right now is to get this business process system, get the fixes in place to see if it can make the system work the way we want it to.
And that might be probably, I think that might be a good update to give. Maybe we agendize that for this committee next month is what are the tasks in the business process that were identified in the business process review and what's the status of them? Because hopefully by this, the finance committee meeting next month, we've knocked some of them off and we have a status update on where the rest of them are.
Yes.
What percentage of our customers get a paper billing?
I don't know. I'd have to check that. We do have a significant of people who are signed up for the online portal, but I don't know if they still get paper checks, paper as well as just online.
If they do online and they're doing an ACH or other online bank check, maybe instead of just hitting it with delinquencies, we give them a benefit for cutting our costs.
Yeah.
So if they had a 5% reduction for doing online billing and saving us that printing,
Online billing with direct payment to the bank, from the
get a
bank.
discount.
Portal allows the customers to select.
Yeah.
Well, we should promote that as much as we're promoting the delinquency. More. Lots of questions, Jeff. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
That's okay. Lots of questions for you saying sorry to me or
No,
not?
it's sorry to you. So we gotta,
Well, you've only got 2 more meetings. Got to get all your shots in.
it has crossed my mind that a lot of these are next year projects.
Yeah, I just hope we get somewhat close.
You hope.
Same quality, Ray. I love the quality of your presentations and kind of your kind of preemptive. We got, what looks like a problem here isn't a problem. this is a problem. Very helpful. And your patience with us. I know that there's been a lot of repetition. I feel like I've learned a lot working with you.
Well, at least we know what the fund codes mean.
That's what I'm here for, because the more information you have, I think the better you can do your job.
And I'm
And
not,
I like the interaction, trust me.
and I'm not advocating for, either of these ideas. I just would like to know why we don't, or why we can't, what we can and can't do.
Mhm.
I'm just getting better informed.
Understood. And I am I'm a very conservative, fiscal conservative.
I hear you. And I
having been
understand
in
your,
this district for all these years when we struggled, and we're still struggling, it's rubbing pennies together sometimes.
I understand. I'm a small businessman. I get it.
Yeah.
Usually my every morning. So.
I think not only did we cover this, but I think I got some marching directions on some next upcoming agenda items.
You want to go over those? So I get my notes.
Yes, sir.
No, I was,
Oh, mine?
if you tell me what I
Uh,
came up with.
Review of Tyler Business Process Review, where we stand on that. Percentage of customers who get paper bills, bad debt percentages, sewer on tax rolls, and then report back on claims.
And then, I think I think that's feasible for next finance committee. And then I think at a future finance committee, we will still revisit the monthly billing question as well.
And I'd like to add to that, that we were going to have more updates, and this, with Kelly gone, maybe this can't happen, but I want to keep putting it forward. Rate assistance.
Oh,
And-
I'm sorry. Yes, that's on my customer.
I know we've got ATCA coming on Wednesday, or tomorrow. But, and hopefully that'll illuminate, but if that's something we need to get done for next budget year, we need to make a recommendation to the board.
Yep.
We should keep chewing on it,
Agree.
because that's how it would have to happen.
I don't know if we need to look, I guess we've decided not to look at liens, at least at this point,
So as a collection tool,
as a collection tool.
generally, we've always, unless it's kind of extraordinary circumstances where if not, the teeter plan is not an option, the teeter plan is so much more effective and cheaper than doing.
Yeah, it wouldn't be an either
individual
or, it
liens.
would be an and. Only if it took so long to get on teeter that after someone is 4 months delinquent, you file a lien, and then, if somebody's, if they're selling a property, it would make sense to me to file a lien the moment we
If we
knew
know,
some,
yeah.
And I know you said that's almost impossible.
The challenge is finding out before it leaves escrow.
It doesn't look like it's a huge amount anyway.
Right. But there are times we have used the lien at times in the past. But it tends to be, only those circumstances where we know we need to do it and we can't use the teeter program for that
The
particular.
reason I ask it is because it was in Jeff's report, Mr. Meyer's report, that it's been somewhat of a problem for CCWD. When things haven't gone to teeter and things have been sold,
Yes.
then we can't.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
And I just did a quick math on the numbers in the staff report. For the last 6 years, it's been about 360,000 or 60,000 a year in bad debt write-offs, bad debt expense. And it fluctuates. 22, 23 was huge. And, that's when you're looking at the timing of that too.
Yeah.
And it's actually started to come down.
But I guess the question is that an item we need to bring back? Because it is a tool that we can use, but we just don't often need to.
I'm okay with this.
Okay.
We don't have it be part of the record, or anything. It was just a question that by reading this report.
Yeah,
made
that makes sense.
To me to ask.
Okay.
All right. Doesn't mean I won't ask it again in the future.
That's okay too.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
That's,
Always.
yeah, really, always. You're just very, very professional and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is general manager comments.
Since we'll be back here tomorrow, I'll probably just hang on to my comments and we'll save them for tomorrow.
Okay. Director comments, do you have any comments?
Yes, sir. So I'll save them for tomorrow if I have any. I'll think them up.
Okay, just my comment is with all of this, we're still looking at some point with the substantial amount of delinquencies that we have, but now I'm feeling like it's less than I thought it was, that we're looking for a suggestion from management about what we might do, whether it's shut off water or just stick with for now and see whether the $10 charge really makes as much difference as we hope it will.
I mean, I think maybe we make a note to keep reporting back on how this progresses over the next couple of billing cycles.
Yeah.
And if we need to, if we get to March and we're not seeing an improvement, we're still on track for the type of, delinquency bill that we sent to the teeter plan again. And then I think we need to look at other options because it didn't work.
And we can report monthly on the fees we collect, the late fees. That'll give us an idea of it. There's different cycles. We can say cycle one is for several months, we got this, it was this, but we can track that, budget information. And that can be part of a monthly report.
And late fees still have to be used for either the sewer or the water?
Yes, so
Okay. So
it's an operating risk.
just looking for.
I mean, honestly, it's intended to cover our cost for sending out
I
a notice and
understand,
the
totally
delay in the
understand.
payment, and it doesn't cover that cost, but
Looking
it's a
for
reminder.
How we
It's
could help people.
it's more of an indicator to the customer to prompt payment.
We don't have anyone online, correct? Okay, well, next committee meeting, Tuesday, November 18th, 2:30 PM. Hereby declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Michael.